Good evening.
Okay, hello.
Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for hosting it.
It's a pleasure.
Let's generate our motivation and place what we're about to do very squarely within the intention of compassion, the intention of making a positive contribution to society. So when a group of people are united by a virtuous intention, the action becomes quite wonderful and powerful. And especially an intention of compassion, an intention of care for living beings and wanting to work for their welfare. That makes quite a good and powerful intention for all of us individually and as a group of people working together. So take a minute and cultivate that kind of intention. We're going to be talking about the book, Courageous Compassion, here. It was co-authored by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and me, and it's part of a series of books called The Library of Wisdom and Compassion, and this is volume 6 in the series, and East West Bookstore hopefully has the first 5 as well as this one, and there will be 10, maybe 11 when the series is complete. So this volume is Courageous Compassion, and it follows the volume called In Praise of Great Compassion. So that volume really helps us to generate impartial love and compassion and an altruistic intention of bodhicitta. And then this volume is then the Bodhisattva's deeds, a Bodhisattva being somebody who has that altruistic intention to become Buddha for the benefit of sentient beings. And then the Bodhisattvas then engage in different conduct to create the merit and the wisdom that will enable them to fully purify their mind and develop all their good qualities and become a fully awakened Buddha. So this book talks about it. Those of you who are familiar with the 6 or 10 perfections in the Sanskrit tradition, it talks about those. So generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, meditative stability, wisdom, and then skillful means, unshakable resolve, power, and pristine wisdom. Okay, so those are the 10 in the Sanskrit tradition. And then the Pali tradition of Buddhism that's popular in Southeast Asia, in the Theravada tradition, they also have 10 paramis that overlap with the ones that we practice in the Tibetan tradition. Some of them overlap, some of them are different, but the ideas are very much the same. So in the Pali tradition, you have generosity, ethical conduct, renunciation, wisdom, joyous effort, fortitude, truthfulness, determination, love, and equanimity. So I thought I would read you, just some different parts of the book and talk about them, these different parts, because some of the things that are discussed are so beautiful, and especially when we get to some of the quotes from the sutras, that talk about the Bodhisattva practices, I find that it tremendously inspiring and uplifting. So I thought just to start with the perfection of fortitude. Some people translate it as the perfection of patience, but I think fortitude is better. Fortitude means, yeah, we have to be able to put up with things, but with a happy mind. Yeah, not put up with things like grumble, grumble, grumble. I'm so angry. But, you know, to go through difficulties, but with a happy mind. So there's some verses in here from different texts. So I thought to read, here's some verses from Shantideva's text. Although enemies such as hatred and craving have neither arms nor legs, and are neither courageous nor wise, how have I, like a slave, been used by them? It's a good question, isn't it? You know, our anger, our resentment, it's nothing even physical that can harm us. It's just thoughts in our mind, and yet it completely takes over our mind and makes us a slave. And, you know, anger says, go scream at somebody, and we go scream. And anger says, don't ever talk to that person again as long as you live. And we say, right out, anger, I'll do that. So Shantideva continues, for while they, the anger and resentment and so forth, dwell within my mind at their pleasure, they cause me harm. I patiently endure these mental afflictions without any anger, but this is an inappropriate and shameful time for patience. You know, so when our minds are overcome by disturbing emotions, that's not the time to, you know, be polite to our disturbing emotions and endure them and coddle them. This is a time to realize that they harm us and apply the antidotes. Okay, so that's just a little bit. I want to give you a taste of some things. So that was a little bit about the practice of fortitude. Then there's a few more verses. Okay, these are also in the chapter about fortitude, and some of them are quite well-known verses. So here Shantideva is saying, whatever befalls me, I shall not disturb my mental joy. For having been made unhappy, I shall not accomplish what I wish, and my virtue will decline. So for me, this verse is very powerful. Whatever befalls me, I shall not disturb my mental joy. So whatever happens to me in life, good, bad, in between, I'm not going to let it disturb, my happiness, my peace of mind. And if you look, so often in our lives, we're really like emotional yo-yos. You know, something good happens, and then something bad happens, and we're happy, and we're miserable, and we're in a good mood, and then we're in a bad mood. Okay. And it's really disturbing to us, but it's also disturbing to other people, because when they see us, they're not quite sure who they're going to meet from one day to the next. You know, a happy person who wants to listen, or a grouchy person who grumbles. Yeah. So this is saying, whatever happens, I'm going to keep a balanced mind. I'm going to keep my own joy, because if I don't do that, then I won't be able to accomplish anything in my Dharma practice, or even in my regular life. if we're always like an emotional yo-yo, we can't, do whatever work we have to do properly. Yeah. And then the next verse, this is a really big one, a quite well-known verse. He says, why be unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? And what is the use of being unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? So you have a problem. Okay. So it says, why be unhappy about something if it can be remedied? So you have a problem. If you can fix it, why be unhappy? You can fix it. The last two lines say, and what is the use of being unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? So if we have a problem and there's nothing to do about it, we cannot control the other people, we can't control the other conditions, then what's the use of being unhappy? I find this quite profound. Do you? Yeah. If you can do something about the situation, why be upset and angry? And if you can't do anything about it, why be upset and angry? There's no sense. Okay. So, these are short verses, but boy, these last two verses, if we can practice them, our whole life would really be different. Yeah. And we would get along with other people so much better and have a lot fewer problems. Okay. So that's just something, in the talking about the perfection of fortitude. Then as His Holiness moves on, again, talking about the Bodhisattva practices, he talks about how bodhisattvas, and we're not bodhisattvas, but we're bodhisattva wannabes. Okay, so when you want to be, you act like the ones you want to be like. Okay, so we practice acting like bodhisattvas, we practice thinking like bodhisattvas. So he also talks about, well, how to share the Dharma with other people. And His Holiness is so wonderful because he's so totally practical about the advice he gives. So this kind of advice here is not only for people who are teaching the Dharma, but, if we want to talk about the Dharma to our friends or to our family or whoever, how to do that in a way that helps our mind and a way that helps them. So he talks about how important it is to really meet people where they're at and talk about the Dharma in a way that they can understand. So that if somebody is a beginner, you don't talk about lots of, mystical things. Yeah, you talk about something that's practical that will help them in their life, And so we try and say things that will really be useful to people. He also says that when he talks about the Dharma, he uses himself as an example, and he talks about himself in the sense that he'll share what he does when he has difficulties or when he has a problem. So he doesn't talk about the Dharma in the sense of saying, and you should do this and you should do that. Yeah, because that really sets up a barrier with the people we're talking to. So, if you want to talk about some of the Dharma remedies to friends, don't tell them what they should do. It's much wiser to tell them what you do when you have a similar kind of problem like that. So let me read just a little bit what he says. He says, Although Tibetan custom is to be humble and say one does not know something even when one does, in some cases, this is not wise. It could discourage students because they would think that the teachings are just stories and lack a living tradition of realized practitioners. Okay. If we have some knowledge or experience, we should tell others what we have gained through continuous practice. Okay, so share from our experience. So for example, if we used to have a very bad temper, but that has lessened through our Dharma practice, people will be encouraged to hear that. So we can talk about our personal experience in that way. Okay, so my style is to express openly the little experience I have on a topic, so students do not think Dharma is merely an academic pursuit. In that way, they will be inspired to practice and develop realizations themselves. Okay, so people often ask me, how do I get my family interested in the Dharma? And so, it's not just by talking how the Dharma has impacted you, but also manifesting it in your life, and especially with your family, because they know you very well. They know exactly what your buttons are and what to say to make you mad. And they know what you don't like to do and how to ask you to do that anyway. They also love you, but they know your buttons. And, if we can show through our own reaction in live time, that we don't react to these things the way we did before, then our family will really, they'll step back and think and go, wow, so-and-so used to be, very super sensitive or, very greedy. And now they've become so generous. Buddhism is really good. It's helping them. Okay, so we show through our actions. Okay, but His Holiness continues, however, we should not publicly say that we have insight into emptiness or have generated bodhicitta. So these are very high realizations, advanced realizations. Nor is it advisable to state that we have attained single-pointed concentration or tantric realizations. For monastics, lying about one's Dharma realizations is a root downfall, which means one is no longer a monastic. Boasting about one's realizations, even when it is true, is also a transgression, but a lesser one. Okay, so whatever we have accomplished in the Dharma, we should not brag about it and use it to increase our arrogance, because then we're using something virtuous to grow non-virtue in our own mind. Okay. So he says it is better in general to tell people of your own internal struggles, that confronting anger, attachment, doubt, and so on requires persistence. Describe how you use the Dharma to purify and transform your mind. This level of discussion of your personal practice is permitted and advantageous. However, when doing this, avoid going to an extreme and turning a teaching situation into a tale about your emotions. Okay, so when you're talking about how you use the Dharma in your life, just talk about it, so that people get an idea about how the Buddha's teachings can be useful to them. But don't go on and on about my emotions and my problems. And then you sprinkle a little bit of Dharma in there, but it's mostly a complaining session about our own, internal stuff. So that's not very helpful to go on and on about that with other people. Yeah, so His Holiness talks about these practices of the Bodhisattvas, and then he goes into a section which is called the paths and grounds, or paths and stages. And this talks about the Bodhisattva practices and the different stages in them, and how Bodhisattvas, once they've generated the altruistic intention to become a Buddha, how they pass through different stages in the practice. And there's some really beautiful citations from the sutras that are in this section of the book. So I thought to read you some of them. And so this is about the fifth ground bodhisattvas. There's 10 bodhisattvas grounds. So this is about the fifth one. And that ground is called the indomitable. And what I'm going to read is from the sutra, the 10 of the 10 grounds, okay? So at this time, the Bodhisattva's great compassion for beings becomes ever more supreme and directly manifest. And he is then able to bring forth the light of great kindness. Having acquired the power of wisdom such as this, he never forsakes any being and always strives to acquire the Buddha's wisdom. He contemplates all past and future conditioned phenomena in accordance with reality. Okay, so at this stage, somebody's internal kindness is so great that it's like they radiate a light of kindness. You know? And there's some people, when you are in their presence, I'm sure you've met people like that. You just, what do they call it? Like they have a really kind vibe, something like that. Their just energy is like that. And you feel really touched about it, coming in contact with them. And so this Bodhisattva doesn't give up on anybody. And when I think about that, that's an amazing quality, because we want to help others, but we have a lot of strings attached to the help we want to give, So we want to help, but the people should say thank you in return. They should appreciate what we do for them. They should follow our instructions. They shouldn't make problems for us. Yeah. And they should remember how kind we've been to them, so that when we need a favor, they will return it. Okay? So our help has a lot of self-centered strings attached. Yeah. This Bodhisattva, their kindness, there's no strings attached. With us, when, with all of our strings, when somebody doesn't fulfill our expectations, when we're trying to help them, we get fed up and we get angry. Oh, so-and-so had a problem and I went really out of my way to help them. And I did all I could. And then they went out and did something stupid again, exactly what I told them not to do. And I'm forever giving to this person and doing something for them. And they're so unappreciative. And I've had it. You ever felt like that? Oh, only one person is honest. I bet everybody, 2 people are honest. Only 2 people. Oh, okay, 2 more. Okay, another one, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so, we're all with friends. We don't have to be ashamed of admitting things. So we get fed up and then we just abandon people. I'm not going to help them anymore. And here is a bodhisattva who doesn't abandon people. Yeah. No matter how awful people act, no matter how unappreciative they are, the bodhisattva does not get mad at them, does not get fed up. That doesn't mean a bodhisattva keeps trying to help in the same way when the other person isn't receptive. If the other person's not receptive, the bodhisattva, it's wasting their energy to keep trying to help. But they keep the door open. So they may not continue to help at that moment because the person's not receptive, but they don't slam the door. And when that person comes around, then the door is open. The bodhisattva still has an attitude of kindness and wanting to help that person. And so then later, when the conditions change, they're able to actually help. And I think this is a tremendous quality, because when I think of myself as a student, and sometimes I do ridiculous things that are completely against, opposite of what my teacher has instructed us to do in our practice. And, if I had a teacher that just said, forget it, and threw me out, where would I be? Yeah, I'd really be out of luck. So this quality, to be able to keep the door open, to keep the kindness there. Yeah, even when the other person can't take it in. Yeah, I think that's a remarkable quality. Yeah. And so the fewer expectations we have of other people, yeah, the less chance there is that we're going to get fed up with them. Okay, because often what happens, what makes us get fed up, is we have expectations up to here that we've never told somebody about. We expect them to know what our expectations are. And we don't ask them if they're willing to fulfill our expectations. We just think they should. So they should be able to read our mind, know what we want, give us what we want. Is that realistic? No. So no wonder, sometimes we're disappointed. It's not necessarily because the other person's made a mistake. It's because we've had a totally unrealistic expectation. Yeah. Okay, then the Bodhisattva thinks common people and other beings are all so very strange. Because of their ignorance and afflictions, they take on a countless and unbounded number of bodies that have been destroyed, are now being destroyed, and will be destroyed in the future. In other words, ordinary beings who don't think about the Dharma, who aren't interested in it, they get reborn, one rebirth after another rebirth after another rebirth. It's like being on a merry-go-round and you can't get off. Yeah. So in this way, they are forever subject to birth and death. They are unable to bring forth thoughts of renunciation for the body, but rather ever increase the mechanisms for producing bodies subject to suffering. So instead of cutting the cause to take on flesh and blood bodies like we have that get old and sick and die, we ordinary beings create more and more causes to take this kind of body. They are always swept along in the waters of the stream of cyclic rebirths and deaths. wherein they are unable to go against its current. And he goes on and on about how, sentient beings want happiness. They don't want suffering. But because our minds are obscured by ignorance, we don't know what the real causes of happiness are. We don't know what the causes of suffering are. And so we, in our attempt to be happy, we often create the causes of suffering. Yeah. So, if we look at our lives, we can see how that happens. Like, for example, where there's somebody that we really care about and we want to be close to that person, when they do something that annoys us, sometimes we just fly off the handle and we're furious at them. Okay, I'm not going to ask you if you do that because I already know you have. Okay, I mean, this is something all of us do. We care about other people, but again, and we want to be close. But when you think about it, who are you the meanest to? The people you care about or strangers? Who do you get the most angry at? The people you love or strangers? Yeah, it's the people you care about, isn't it? Yeah, we would never say to a stranger what we say to the people we love. And that, when you think about it, that's really dumb, isn't it? You would think that we would be the kindest and the most patient with the people we care about. But because of our unrealistic expectations, very often we are the meanest to the people we care about. Yeah, so often when we want to be close to these people, there's something that disturbs us. Then we don't say, oh, there's something that is disturbing me and I really want to be close to you and I really care about you. And, let's sit down and see if we can work this out because my relationship with you is really important. We don't say that when there's a problem. We say, why are you doing that? I've told you that's ridiculous to do. I don't understand that. And you are making me miserable and you do it deliberately. You are passive aggressive and I'm just done. Yeah. So we say that to them when really what's going on is we want to be close. Yeah. So we can see that our old habits and our disturbing emotions work completely against our own wishes to be happy and to be close to other people. Yeah. Because if we yell and scream at somebody, or some of us are not yellers and screamers, some of us are cold shoulders. We just tune somebody out. Yeah. It's like the freezer door is open in your home and it is chilly, really chilly between people. So, some of us are yellers and screamers and some of us just withdraw and don't speak to somebody. But in our hearts, what do we want? We actually want to have a good relationship with that person. But we're acting in a way that is pushing that person away from us. Yeah. So this is giving us some idea of when we talk about ignorance, what ignorance means. Yeah, that we really work against our own purposes. And we make the situation worse for ourselves and worse for the other person. Okay. So this is something we have to notice and then really understand how it operates, what our emotional pattern is, what our behavioral pattern is, and then think about how else we can see the situation and how we can change our behavior. So this Bodhisattva on the fifth ground, when they see, this self-sabotaging behavior on the part of living beings, then this is how they respond in their own mind. Instead of getting fed up, they think, I will then use these teachings to cause all these beings to dwell in a state of utmost purity, and then continue on in this until they are caused to acquire the Buddha's unimpeded power of wisdom with respect to all phenomena. So I'm just going to continue on and keep helping sentient beings and lead them on the path to awakening. Yeah, instead of self-sabotaging myself and hurting others by my own confused behavior. Okay, then there's a longer passage here, and some of you on the call I know already, and I know that you know the Samantabhadra prayer called the King of Prayers, the extraordinary aspiration of the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra. So this what I want to read now is talking about that prayer. We often call it the 7-limb prayer. There are actually 10 limbs in it. So I don't think this passage labels all of them, but those of you who are familiar with what I'm talking about, you'll see the different things. Okay, so this prayer, it was given to a young lad named Sudana, and Sudana wanted to follow the Bodhisattva path. And so he went to one teacher who taught him something. And then that teacher referred him to another one. He learned something else. That teacher referred him to another one. And he had many, many teachers by the time he finally attained full awakening. Okay. And one of the last teachers taught him this part that I'm going to read now. So here's his teacher speaking to the youth, Sudana. Sudana, to accommodate and benefit all living beings, is explained like this. Throughout the oceans of worlds in the 10 directions, exhausting the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space, there are many different kinds of living beings. That is to say, there are those born from eggs, the womb-born, those born by transformation, as well as those who live and rely on earth, water, fire, and air for their existence. There are beings dwelling in space and those who are born in and live in plants and trees. This includes all the many species and races with their diverse bodies, shapes, appearances, lifespans, families, names, and natures. This includes their many varieties of knowledge and views, their various desires and pleasures, their thoughts and deeds, and their many different deportments, clothing, and diets. So really saying that amongst living beings, there is a huge diversity of not only the way people look, but the way they think and what they're interested in. And if we're going to work for the benefit of sentient beings, we have to have a big mind that can encompass all this diversity. We have to let go of the mind that says, I want, the people who look like me are the good people. The people who are of the same socioeconomic class that I am, they're the good people. The people who have my religion are good. The people who have my race are good. The people who think like I do, they're good. Yeah, but everybody else, forget it. I just can't handle people who have all these kind of crazy ideas. And so what the Sudanese teacher is saying to him is, if you really want to help people, you have to have an attitude of equanimity towards everybody, and an attitude that cares equally for everybody, no matter what they look like, and if they think like you, and if they're of the same class or caste as you are. We have to be able to accept the enormous diversity in people. And I think this is something that America is really struggling with at the moment. Yeah. And some of you are Americans, I know, and some of you are from other countries. But whatever country we live in, not everybody is like us. And we have to stretch our mind and accept the differences and see the beauty in them, and not demand that everybody look like us or think like us or act like us. Because I think the diversity, it expands our mind, it expands our hearts. We learn so much more from people who are different. Yeah. I know once I finished college, it's like I wanted to travel because I wanted to see the world and how living beings experience it. I was tired of reading about life. I wanted to live it. And I think, this willingness to engage with all sorts of people is such an incredible education for us. Okay, Sudanese teacher goes on. Yeah. It includes beings who dwell in different villages, towns, cities, and palaces, as well as gods and dragons and others of the 8 types of beings, humans and non-humans alike. Also, there are footless beings, beings with 2 feet, 4 feet, and many feet, with form and without form, with thought and without thought, and not entirely with thought and not entirely without thought. I will accord with and take care of all these many kinds of beings, provide all manner of services and offerings for them. I will treat them with the same respect I show my own parents, teachers, elders, arhats, and even Tathagatas. I will serve them all equally without difference. That's quite an aspiration, isn't it? Quite a determination to look out and for the benefit of each and every being and to work for their welfare according to what they need and where they're at. All the many kinds of beings, and to serve them all equally. Yeah. Equally doesn't mean we give everybody spaghetti, we give the people who like spaghetti, and the people who like, dumplings, we give them dumplings. So we give different things to different people, but we work, our motivation is to work equally and to satisfy the needs of all the diverse beings. And then the teacher, again, he's teaching Sudana what kind of attitude to cultivate. So he said, this is how to think. I will be a good doctor for the sick and suffering. I will lead those who have lost their way to the right road. I will be a bright light for those in the dark night and cause the poor and destitute to uncover hidden treasures. The Bodhisattva impartially benefits all living beings in this manner. Okay. And so for me, to know that there's beings in the world who think like this is just tremendous, because we so often, when we read the news, we're reading about people who are looking out for their own benefit and don't care for others at all. So to read this kind of description and think that there are people like this in the world is very comforting and consoling, and also very inspiring, especially when we think that we can become like them. Okay, that there's an actual path of practice so that we can become like them. So the teacher goes on, why is this? If a bodhisattva accords with living beings, then he accords with and makes offerings to all Buddhas. If he can honor and serve living beings, then he honors and serves the Tathagatas. In other words, you may have lots of faith in the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, the Tathagatas, and you may want to serve them and make offerings to them. And the way to do that is to help other living beings. Because who do the holy beings care most about? They care most about other living beings. So we like making offerings on the altar of apples and oranges and things like that. Yeah, beings who are enlightened, they don't need these things. Yeah. But if we reach out and we can help other living beings, those are the ones that the enlightened beings care about the most. So if he makes living beings happy, he is making all the Buddhas happy. Why is this? It is because all Buddhas take the mind of great compassion as their substance. Because of living beings, they develop great compassion. From great compassion, bodhicitta is born, and because of bodhicitta, they accomplish supreme perfect awakening. Yeah, so those beings who have attained supreme perfect awakening, yeah, what enables them to do so is their altruistic intention. Who helps them develop that altruistic intention? The living beings who are the object of their love and compassion. Okay, so when we look around, living beings are also the ones who enable us to advance on the spiritual path. Okay, and I think this is really important because sometimes our minds are really split. It's like, oh, the Buddhas are wonderful and I have so much love for them. And ordinary beings, ugh. Yeah. And you encounter that sometimes. People, when their spiritual teachers are there, oh, they make a good meal, they fuss, they wash the dishes, they clean the house, But when other living beings are there, who they don't have that same respect for, they just go, whatever. And this is saying, no, we should treat everybody in a respectful way, in a caring way. It is like a great regal tree growing in the rocks and sand of barren wilderness. When the roots get water, the branches, leaves, flowers, and fruits will all flourish. The regal Bodhi tree growing in the wilderness of birth and death is the same. All living beings are its roots. All Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are its flowers and fruits. By benefiting all beings with the water of great compassion, one can realize the flowers and fruits of the Buddha's and Bodhisattva's wisdom. Why is this? It is because by benefiting living beings with the water of great compassion, the Bodhisattvas can attain supreme perfect awakening. Therefore, Bodhi belongs to living beings. Without living beings, no Bodhisattva could achieve supreme perfect awakening. So our spiritual progress, our spiritual development is dependent on each and every living being. Whether you like them or not, whether you trust them or not, our spiritual progress depends on them. Because to progress, we have to have compassion equally for everybody. So, good person, you should understand these principles in this way. When the mind is impartial toward all living beings, one can accomplish full and perfect great compassion. By using the mind of great compassion to accord with living beings, one perfects the making of offerings to the Tathagatas. In this way, the Bodhisattva constantly accords with living beings. Okay. And so, he says, I will still act endlessly, continuously, in thought after thought without ceasing. My body, speech, and mind will never weary of these bodhisattvas' compassionate deeds. Yeah, so that gives us something to look towards. Yeah, a purpose in our life to develop these qualities. And that kind of purpose in our lives makes our lives really meaningful. And it's more worthwhile and more beneficial than making tons of money, than getting a corner office and, going up the corporate ladder. Developing what's in our own heart is really the key to a meaningful and happy life. So with that, our time together is over for tonight. Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Sure. Thank you, everybody. So let's really rejoice of all the goodness we created tonight as individuals and as a group. And then, in your heart, spread it out, share it with each and every living beings so that everybody can benefit from what we've done this evening. Share that goodness. Thank you very much for hosting this.
It was our pleasure. Thank you for your wonderful talk.